A racist police officer stands in front of a young black teen named Jamal in the park. "What are you doing here?" the officer asks sharply. Jamal, holding a book in his hands, looks up nervously. "I am just reading," he says, trying to stay calm. The officer frowns. "Reading. People like you do not come here to read. Show me your ID." Jamal hesitates, unsure of what to do. He slowly reaches into his pocket, but the officer steps closer, his tone growing louder. "Move faster. Are you hiding something?" People in the park stop and watch. Some pull out their phones to record. The officer grabs Jamal's wrist roughly. "I know your kind. Always causing trouble." Jamal tries to explain, but the officer cuts him off. Suddenly, a strong voice breaks through the tension. "Take your hands off my son." Everyone turns to see a confident black woman walking towards them. Her face shows calm but fierce determination. The officer freezes, unsure of what to do. What happens next will leave everyone in shock. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. The officer crosses his arms, narrowing his eyes at the black teen who remains seated on the park bench. "What are you even doing here, kid? Trying to scout out trouble?" the officer says, his voice dripping with suspicion. Jamal, the 15-year-old with a quiet demeanor, looks up nervously. "I'm just sketching, sir. That's all." He gestures at the open sketchbook on his lap, its pages filled with intricate drawings of the park. The officer doesn't even glance at the sketchbook. "Sketching, huh? Or casing the place? I've seen enough of your type hanging around here." Jamal's heart pounds, his hands tightening around the pencil he holds. "I live here. I just like to draw. My mom says it's okay to come here after school." The officer's dismissive smirk only grows. "Your mom? She let you roam around like this? Probably doesn't care where you are as long as you're out of her hair." Nearby park-goers exchange uncomfortable glances, some taking out their phones to record what is quickly becoming a scene. A jogger slows down, her brows furrowed in concern as she watches the confrontation unfold. Jamal musters up his courage. "I'm not doing anything wrong. I have every right to be here." The officer scoffs, stepping closer. "Your rights? Let me tell you something, boy. Around here you do what I say or there will be consequences." He reaches for Jamal's backpack, snatching it up without permission. "Hey, that's mine," Jamal protests, standing up as fear and frustration mix in his voice. The officer ignores him, unzipping the bag and rifling through its contents. A few pencils and art supplies fall to the ground. "What are you hiding in here?" he demands, his tone growing harsher. "I'm not hiding anything," Jamal says, his voice cracking slightly. The onlookers begin murmuring louder, their discomfort evident. Before the officer can continue, a commanding female voice slices through the tension like a knife. "Put that bag down. Right now." The officer freezes, turning to see a woman striding toward them with purposeful steps. Her presence radiates authority and strength. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" the officer shoots back, but his bravado falters under her intense glare. Jamal's face lights up with relief. "Mom!" he calls out. Standing before the officer is Angela, Jamal's mother, an accomplished attorney known for her unwavering fight for justice. Her professional attire and confident posture immediately shift the energy in the park. "That's my son," Angela says, her voice firm but calm. "And you have no right to harass him like this." The officer stammers, trying to regain control of the situation. "Ma'am, your son was acting suspiciously." Angela interrupts, her voice sharp. "Sketching in a public park is not a crime. Touching his belongings without cause is—" The crowd edges closer, emboldened by Angela's presence. Cameras continue recording as she locks eyes with the officer. "You're making a big mistake," Angela warns, her tone cutting through the officer's weak excuses. The officer, caught off guard, begins to step back, his confidence fading as the crowd's support shifts toward Angela and Jamal. The officer takes a step back, but his face hardens. He refuses to let the situation slip from his control. He glares at Angela and then at Jamal. "Lady, I'm doing my job. If your son wasn't acting suspicious, none of this would be happening," the officer says, crossing his arms defensively. Angela doesn't flinch. "Your job doesn't involve intimidating innocent kids. Now, return my son's backpack and explain why you're harassing him without cause." Jamal, still clutching his sketchbook, shifts uncomfortably as the officer sizes him up. "I saw him loitering. He fits the description of someone who's been causing trouble in the area," the officer says, his voice dripping with forced authority. Angela raises an eyebrow. "Loitering? Sitting on a bench and sketching in broad daylight is your idea of suspicious behavior? And this so-called description? Let me guess, a young black boy in a hoodie?" The officer hesitates, realizing the crowd is growing restless. A woman holding her phone mutters, "Unbelievable," while another man shakes his head in disapproval. Angela notices the growing support and presses on. "My son isn't a criminal. He's an artist. Do you know who I am?" The officer smirks, attempting to dismiss her. "I don't care who you are. Rules apply to everyone." Angela steps closer, her voice unwavering. "I'm Angela Carter, a defense attorney who specializes in civil rights. And I know the law better than you do. What you're doing is profiling and abuse of power. Now, return the bag and walk away before you make this worse." Jamal looks up at his mother with newfound confidence. The officer, however, refuses to back down. "I don't need a lecture. If you have an issue, take it up with my department," he says, tossing Jamal's backpack to the ground. Angela's expression sharpens. "I will, and trust me, this isn't over. But for now, you'll apologize to my son for violating his rights." The officer chuckles bitterly, ignoring her demand. Instead, he points at Jamal. "Stay out of trouble, kid. Next time, you won't get off so easy." Angela steps in front of Jamal protectively. "There won't be a next time. Not for him, and not for you if you continue this behavior." The officer begins to retreat, aware that the crowd is watching closely, their cameras still rolling. Whispers spread, people muttering about his unprofessional conduct. Jamal picks up his backpack, his hands trembling slightly. "Mom, are we going to let him get away with this?" he asks quietly. Angela places a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "No, we're not. This isn't just about you. It's about making sure no one else has to go through this." As the officer walks away, Angela turns to the onlookers. "Thank you for recording this. If you witnessed what happened, I'll need your statements. We're going to hold him accountable." A few people nod in agreement, stepping forward to offer their help. The air in the park shifts, the fear and tension replaced by a sense of unity and determination. Angela and Jamal return home, but the weight of the incident lingers. Angela knows she cannot let this slide. She sits at her desk and begins drafting a detailed account of what happened, outlining the officer's misconduct. Later that evening, Angela receives a call from a concerned neighbor who was at the park. "Angela, I saw everything. I have the video. This needs to go public," the neighbor insists. Angela hesitates for a moment but agrees. "Send me the footage. This isn't just about Jamal. It's about every child who faces this kind of treatment." The next morning, Angela calls her trusted colleague, David, a civil rights advocate. "David, we need to file a formal complaint. This officer's actions were not just inappropriate. They were unlawful." David listens carefully and responds with resolve. "Let's do this the right way. First, we'll gather witness statements and evidence. Then we'll bring it to the police department and the media." Angela's confidence grows as she contacts other witnesses from the park. Several people share their videos and statements, all condemning the officer's behavior. A few days later, Angela and David walk into the police department. Angela hands over a file filled with witness testimonies, videos, and legal documentation to the internal affairs officer. "This officer targeted my son without cause. He racially profiled him, violated his rights, and humiliated him in public. We're not asking for justice, we're demanding it, Angela states firmly. The internal affairs officer flips through the file, his expression becoming more serious with each page. This is a serious matter. We'll conduct a thorough investigation, he says, but Angela can tell he's trying to downplay the situation. We're not waiting quietly, Angela says. The community deserves to know how your department handles situations like this. Outside the department, Angela speaks to a group of reporters who have gathered. My son was harassed for simply existing in a park. This is not an isolated incident. It's part of a systemic issue that needs to be addressed. The footage from the park, paired with Angela's powerful statement, begins to circulate online. Social media explodes with outrage, people calling for accountability and justice. The hashtags number Justice for Jamal and number Stop Profiling start trending within hours. Jamal watches the coverage from their living room, his eyes wide with amazement. "Mom, this is huge," he says. Angela sits beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This isn't just about us, Jamal. It's about making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." As the story gains momentum, local community leaders reach out to Angela, offering their support. Protests are organized, peaceful marches demanding change and transparency within the police department. The officer who targeted Jamal is placed on administrative leave as the investigation continues. Angela knows this is just the beginning, but the community's support strengthens her resolve. She looks at Jamal, who is now smiling for the first time since the incident. "We're going to see this through," Angela says, "for you, for every child, and for the future." Angela's fight for justice takes an unexpected turn when the story reaches the desk of a prominent journalist. An investigative report is aired, showcasing the videos, witness accounts, and Angela's powerful statements. The community's outrage spreads far beyond the neighborhood, capturing the nation's attention. One evening, Angela receives a call from the police chief. "Mrs. Carter, I've seen the evidence. This is a serious situation, and I want to personally assure you that changes are coming," he says. Angela remains skeptical. "It's not just about promises. We need real action, Chief. Words won't fix the damage done," she replies firmly. The chief agrees to meet with Angela and her legal team. At the meeting, Angela presents the evidence once again, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "This officer didn't just target my son. He represents a pattern of abuse that your department has allowed to persist." The chief's face shows a mix of discomfort and realization. "I understand your frustration. We'll be reviewing all policies related to racial profiling and police conduct. This officer will face consequences if the investigation confirms his actions." Meanwhile, the story continues to gain traction on social media. Influential figures and activists begin sharing Angela's fight, calling for accountability. Community leaders organize a town hall meeting, inviting Angela to speak. At the town hall, Angela addresses a packed room. This isn't just about one officer or one department. It's about a system that allows discrimination to go unchecked. We must stand together and demand better for our children. The crowd erupts in applause, their support echoing through the hall. Jamal watches his mother with pride, seeing her strength inspire so many. During the meeting, a former officer steps forward to speak. "I left the force because I couldn't stand the bias I witnessed daily." Angela's story is one of many, and it's time we hold the system accountable, he says. Angela's story begins to spark a movement. Protests grow larger, peaceful demonstrations drawing attention to racial profiling and the need for police reform. National news outlets pick up the story, and Angela finds herself invited to share her experience on a major television network. On live television, Angela speaks directly to the audience. "I'm a mother fighting for my son, but I'm also fighting for every child who has been made to feel less than because of the color of their skin. We deserve better." The police department issues a public statement, acknowledging the misconduct and vowing to implement mandatory training on racial bias and community engagement. Angela receives messages of support from across the country. Strangers share their own stories of discrimination, thanking her for speaking out. One day, Jamal comes home holding a letter. "Mom, this came for you," he says. Angela opens it to find a handwritten note from a young woman. "Dear Mrs. Carter, your bravery has given me hope. I faced something similar but never had the courage to speak up. Because of you, I know I can. Thank you." Tears fill Angela's eyes as she reads the letter. She looks at Jamal, who smiles back at her. "We're making a difference, Mom," he says. The officer involved is eventually fired after the investigation concludes. Angela's relentless pursuit of justice has not only held him accountable, but also forced the department to confront its shortcomings. Angela stands on the steps of City Hall, addressing a crowd of supporters. "This is just the beginning. Change doesn't happen overnight, but together we've taken a step forward, and we won't stop until justice is a reality for everyone." As the crowd cheers, Jamal stands beside his mother, his pride evident. Angela has turned a painful experience into a powerful movement for change, proving that one voice can make a difference. As the video of Jamal's harassment circulates online, public outrage erupts. Comments flood social media, with hashtags like #JusticeForJamal and #EndRacial Profiling trending nationwide. Angela's story becomes a rallying cry for change, resonating far beyond her neighborhood. Community members organize a protest outside the police department. People of all races and backgrounds gather, holding signs that read, "Accountability Now" and "Justice for All." Angela stands at the forefront, addressing the crowd with a powerful message. "My son was harassed for simply existing. This isn't just about him. It's about all our children who deserve to live without fear. We're here today because enough is enough," she declares, her voice unwavering. The local news picks up the protest, airing interviews with Angela and other community members. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened," says a young man. "But this time, we're not staying silent." The pressure mounts on the police department. The police chief issues a statement, acknowledging the video and promising a full investigation. But the community isn't satisfied with words. They demand action. Other victims of similar incidents come forward, sharing their own experiences of racial profiling. "I was stopped for jogging in my own neighborhood," one woman recounts. "They said I looked suspicious. It's a pattern that needs to stop." National news outlets begin covering the story. Angela is invited to speak on a popular talk show where she discusses the incident and the broader issues it represents. "This is about more than just my son," she tells the host. "It's about creating a future where no parent has to fear for their child's safety because of the color of their skin." The story gains traction among influential figures. Celebrities and activists use their platforms to amplify Angela's voice. Donations pour in to support the legal battle against the officer involved and to fund initiatives aimed at ending racial profiling. One day, Angela receives a call from a prominent civil rights lawyer. "Mrs. Carter, I want to help you. Cases like this are why I became a lawyer," he says. Together, they file a formal complaint against the officer and the department. The public backlash intensifies. Peaceful protests spread to other cities, with thousands marching in solidarity with Angela and Jamal. The chants of "Justice for Jamal" echo through the streets, a powerful reminder that this fight is far from over. The police department is forced to take further action. The officer involved is placed on administrative leave, pending the outcome of the investigation. But Angela knows this is only the beginning. She organizes a town hall meeting, inviting local officials, community leaders, and residents to discuss solutions. The meeting is packed with standing room only as people share their stories and demand change. One man stands up and says, "We're not just here to talk. We're here to ensure this never happens again." His words draw applause from the crowd, a testament to the unity and determination of the community. Angela takes the stage. "This isn't just about holding one officer accountable," she says. "It's about dismantling a system that allows discrimination to persist. We have the power to make a difference, but it requires all of us working together." Her speech is met with a standing ovation. Jamal watches from the front row, his heart swelling with pride. He realizes his mother's strength is inspiring a movement, turning their pain into a catalyst for change. The police chief attends the meeting, facing tough questions from the crowd. "We recognize the need for reform," he admits. "We're committed to reviewing our policies and implementing mandatory training on bias and community relations," but Angela doesn't let him off the hook. "Commitments mean nothing without action," she says. "We'll be watching to ensure these promises are kept." The public backlash continues to grow, putting immense pressure on the police department. As more stories of injustice come to light, it becomes clear that Angela's fight is part of a larger struggle for equality and justice. The movement sparked by Jamal's incident shows no signs of slowing down. Angela's unwavering determination and the community's support prove that change is possible, even in the face of systemic injustice. The viral video and public backlash forced the police department to take serious action. After an internal investigation, the officer involved is fired, and the department implements mandatory racial sensitivity training. But for Angela, this fight is not just about punishment. It's about creating a better future. Angela holds a press conference outside the courthouse, surrounded by supporters and media. "This isn't just about one officer," she begins. "It's about dismantling the systems that allow this kind of behavior to thrive." Her words resonate deeply, sparking conversations about change far beyond her town. Jamal, once shy and reserved, finds his voice through the ordeal. With his mother's encouragement, he speaks at a community event. "I didn't understand why it happened to me," he says, "but my mom showed me that staying silent isn't an option. We have to stand up for what's right." Angela uses the momentum to establish a foundation called Justice for All, aimed at supporting victims of racial profiling and advocating for police reform. She partners with civil rights groups to organize workshops, town halls, and community programs. At one such workshop, a young boy approaches Angela. "Thank you for fighting for us," he says, his eyes shining with hope. Angela smiles, realizing that her efforts are making a tangible difference. Meanwhile, the fired officer, Mark Wilson, begins his own journey of reflection. Initially angry and defensive, he starts to confront the biases that led to his actions. At the urging of his family, he joins a program focused on restorative justice and racial awareness. Through the program, Mark meets Angela in a mediated session. At first, the tension in the room is palpable. "I didn't see the harm I was causing," Mark admits, his voice heavy with regret. Angela listens intently, her expression calm but resolute. "Your actions hurt my son deeply," she responds. "But if you're truly willing to change, then that's a step in the right direction. This isn't about revenge, it's about accountability and growth." Their conversation, though difficult, becomes a turning point for both. Mark begins volunteering with Angela's foundation, sharing his story as a cautionary tale and advocating for systemic change. The community also begins to heal. Inspired by Angela's leadership, local officials pass measures to improve accountability within the police force. New policies include body cameras, transparent reporting of misconduct, and stronger community engagement initiatives. Angela's foundation grows, attracting national attention. She's invited to speak at conferences and on talk shows, where she shares her vision for a more just and inclusive society. "This isn't just my fight," she says. "It's all of ours." Jamal, now a teenager with newfound confidence, follows in his mother's footsteps. He starts a youth group at school to educate his peers about their rights and the importance of standing up against injustice. "My mom taught me that one voice can make a difference," he tells his classmates. The ripple effects of Angela's work are felt far and wide. Other communities adopt similar initiatives, inspired by her determination and resilience. Angela receives letters from people across the country, thanking her for giving them hope and courage. In a heartfelt moment, Angela reflects on how far they've come. Sitting with Jamal in their living room, she says, "This started as a nightmare, but look at what we've built together. Change is never easy, but it's always worth it." Jamal nods, his eyes filled with pride. "You're my hero, Mom," he says, and Angela smiles, knowing that their fight for justice has strengthened their bond and created a legacy that will endure. The story of Angela and Jamal becomes a symbol of resilience, redemption, and the power of standing up for what's right. Together, they prove that even in the face of adversity, change is possible when fueled by courage and determination. Angela and Jamal's story spread across the world, becoming a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of justice. Their determination showed how one moment of injustice could spark a movement for change. The video of the confrontation between the officer and Jamal not only led to accountability, but inspired communities far beyond their town to reflect and act. As the sun sets over their quiet neighborhood, Angela sits on the porch with Jamal. The weight of the journey they've been on is evident, but so is the strength they've gained. Angela looks at her son with pride. "Do you realize what we've accomplished?" she asks. "We turned a moment of pain into something meaningful." Jamal nods, his confidence glowing. "You taught me not to be afraid to speak up, Mom. That's something I'll carry with me forever." The impact of their story is undeniable. Messages flood in from people who faced similar struggles, thanking Angela for being their voice. Letters from schools, community leaders, and even former officers express gratitude for her courage and efforts to create dialogue. Angela's foundation, Justice for All, has grown into a nationwide initiative. Programs in schools teach kids about their rights, while community workshops foster understanding and unity. Angela often speaks at events, reminding everyone that change starts with action. "Silence never changes anything," she tells her audiences. "Every voice matters." The officer, Mark Wilson, is no longer the same man who harassed Jamal that day in the park. Through the programs Angela supported, Mark has not only confronted his biases, but also become a voice for reform. His journey of redemption serves as a reminder that even those who make grave mistakes can change if they are willing to learn. In one powerful moment, Angela and Mark stand side by side at a community event, speaking about the importance of accountability and understanding. The sight of them together moves the audience, proving that even the deepest divisions can be bridged with dialogue and effort. Angela's fight for justice has left an indelible mark on her community. Local policies now enforce stricter rules for police accountability, and the town has become a model for progress. Families, inspired by Angela's leadership, actively participate in community-building efforts. As Jamal prepares to start his own journey as a young adult, Angela's heart swells with pride. "You've shown so much courage," she tells him. "Never forget that your voice has power." Jamal smiles. "I won't, Mom. Thanks to you, I know how to use it." Their story doesn't just end, it continues to inspire. It reminds everyone that standing up for justice isn't just about changing the present, but also building a better future. Angela and Jamal's resilience has shown that even in the face of adversity, hope and courage can prevail. What would you do if you were in Angela's position? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us of the strength within us all.